Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Hartford Subcommittee of the MARB. It is May 26th. We do have a quorum, and the time is 10:04. I'm Kimberly Kennison. I'm the designee for Secretary Beckham. And today, the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from April the 28th. If I could get a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. And how about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? I hear none. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Or abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you, Matt. All right, the minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is to review and discuss any possible action on labor contracts. We're going to start with the first labor contract, which is Local 566 for custodians, food service, and maintenance workers. To get today in your packet, we have been provided with a summary from the city. Actually, it's a Board of Ed, right? Side.
Yes.
Thank you. So, and we have a summary, and we've also been provided with a red line of the tentative agreement. And this agreement, Julian, when do we have to take action on this, please?
By June 19th for the
June
full
19th.
MARB. Yeah.
For the full MARB. Okay. And I'm going to turn it over to Chief Penn or their legal counsel, Ms. Kaufman. Your choice.
So I'll do a very quick preamble before turning it over to Attorney Kaufman to take you through this. These are contracts number 5 and number 6 we've brought to you so far this fiscal year. I do expect that these will be the last 2 that we land on a settlement with in fiscal 21-22. Very similar to the way that we've been structuring the last couple of contracts you've seen us bring before you. We've got retros back to 7/1/21. The retros are fully covered by the position surpluses that we've had due to vacancies and the associated fringe accounts with those salaries that go with those salaries. That's been an intentional part of our negotiating strategy, as I've shared with you. And, you know, to the extent that we've gotten now the other half of the school health professionals over to the high deductible health plan, that was a split group. We continue to move and migrate everybody on over. So you've got additional detail on both groups in terms of vacancies, in terms of turnover rates, comparables against other districts. And I should note, those comparables are 2 pages each. It's the DIRG, or what used to be called the DIRG, and then the nearby towns where we had information available for you. And with that as preamble, let Attorney Kaufman take you through 566, and 566 is our custodians and our food service workers.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Let me briefly go over our contract terms. As Phil said, this unit does cover custodians, maintenance staff, and cafeteria workers. There are approximately 286 employees in this group. And this is by far, especially the food service workers, our lowest paid group. With that, you're going to see some larger GWIs in step than we proposed with other groups. This is actually the second time that this group has been before you. This was one of our first contracts that went through the MARB process almost 3 years ago. Just for some history, this group has had, since 2011, they've accepted 5 years of zeros with very little step increase. And that was one of the things that this unit was very, very concerned about, was making up some of those step increases. So with that, I will run through our proposal. So for retroactive to the beginning of this year, we agreed upon a 3% GWI with step for those who are not at the top. Next year, for July 1, 2022, again, 3% GWI with step for those not at top step. July 1st, 2023, 2.5% GWI with STEP, and then July 1st, 2024, 2% GWI with STEP. And the retroactive to the beginning of the year only apply to those that are employed on the date that the MARB approves the CBA, if it's approved. Some other minor wage changes. We did agree to create 4 classes of night leadsmen. Just for some history, we do have 4 classes of head custodians at our school who do the day shift. And we are now going to have a similar structure for the night leadsman, who is essentially the head custodian at the night, based on the size of the school and thus the number of employees that are custodians that will report to that individual. So the smallest school will remain on grid 77. The next largest school will have a 25-cent essentially stipend per hour on top of 77. And then class 3 is a 50-cent per hour stipend. And then class 4 is a 75% per hour stipend as well. And these are now considered separate classes that will be promotional opportunities for these individuals. This group was probably our first group to fully move to the high deductible health plan. So they have been in that plan already. So very few changes to the health insurance. The structure is remaining the same. And we are doing a premium cost share increase from 12%, which it is this year, to 13% next year, and then holding that steady the year after. And I did give you the cost breakdowns of what this will cost overall. And then just some other fairly minor changes. We did change the current transfer and promotion language, both to actually reflect the current evaluation tool and to allow, right now the language, they have to have whatever the setting is, whether it's average or above average on every single subsection in order to be eligible for promotion. We've now changed that to an overall so that it gives more promotional opportunities. We updated some language on Veterans Day. We had put Veterans Day in as a potential holiday if the schools were closed, realized that there were some issues with the students might not be in the school, but staff still might be, and that created some issues. So we put in more language to address making that a floating holiday if need be, that the employees can use during the winter holiday instead of on Veterans Day. And eliminated some language regarding second shift. Right now, the language had specific shifts that could be chosen from, and this will give more flexibility so that the school can set whatever shift they need as second shift, and then some technical changes. So with that, I will open up to any questions that anyone might have.
And I'm actually going to just jump in with one last point on this. You'll see on the total cost summary that we provided, that there's a portion of the overall cost that's attributable to our food service fund. The food service fund here in Hartford is self-sufficient. There are no transfers from the general fund budget over to food service. We happen to be very lucky to have a food service director that is exceptionally good at her job and has been self-sufficient for a number of years. So to the extent that we have wage increases attributable to the food service workers, that piece will not impact our general fund as part of this contract.
Okay. Thank you. So overall, this is going to have an impact on the budget over the next 5 years of 1.1 million. Mr. Penn?
I think it's actually.
I did a net effect.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 1.1. That's correct.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
40% of that ish comes in this year as a retro.
Yeah. In 22, you have to hit it this year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Fiscal 22. That's correct.
Right. As the first year.
Yeah.
You still think that the savings is going to come through for the food service fund for those dollars?
Yes, she actually has a fairly substantial surplus right now, so
Okay.
I'm not concerned about that.
Okay. And have these increases been included in your plan for your budget already?
Yeah, we budgeted about a 2% increase kind of for any employee group. So that to the extent that we have 2%, it'd be slightly over in this case, as you can see. But within tolerances, I would say.
Okay.
And that would apply for both 21 and 22. Obviously, we had anticipated there was potential for an increase in the 21-22 budget.
Mhm.
And then we built in a 2% increase for 22-23 as well.
Okay. Any questions from the MARB members? Hi, Christine.
The way I read this, there's no member of these groups that will be making less than $15 an hour beginning next year.
Yeah, that's right. If you actually look in the detail of the CBA, you'll see it notated where we actually increased the hourly wage for the food service workers to $15 an hour to make sure we were compliant with the change in the underlying minimum wage. So we actually increased the hourly wage by higher than what the contract had originally agreed to. The percentage increase was originally agreed to, knowing that we had to stay consistent with the federal guidelines on, or excuse me, the state guidelines on minimum wage.
Same concern here that I had previously. You have a high vacancy rate and the turnover rate is consistently high. When I say high, it's not double digits. Hopefully it'll never get there, but it's still there. So that being considered, do you consider this contract, the difficulty of trying to make up 5 years of zeros, obviously is going to be very difficult to try to put yourself in a position that's commensurate with surrounding towns, even in your DERG, because that sets you back quite a bit. And I see you're trying to make an effort within your budgetary constraints to try to get up there. So only time will tell whether or not you can get there. So the general wage is, I would say consistent, maybe a little high, but consistent with surrounding towns. Your step movement on an annual basis is good because traditionally, as you know, step movements are always sacrificed for the general wage when money's tight. But you know, I think mindful of the competitiveness in the vacancies that existed in this group and others that we've agreed to, I think should be watched by MARB. And if those vacancies continue, a discussion between MARB and the board management to how can we continue to move to a less vacancy rate. I don't know how much this impedes the programmatic progress or just the programmatic operations. Hopefully it doesn't, but nonetheless, it's a concern. I don't know if it's consistent with other units, with other towns. Hopefully not. Well, I shouldn't say hopefully not, but the only other question I have is you have 3 obviously shifts on your custodial side, and you do have a vacancy rate there and also, do you find that your turnover rate on the custodial side is more in a certain shift, or is it fairly consistent? In other words, is your first shift vacancy rate may be 5% and your third shift 10%? You know what I'm saying? Is there a difference in the vacancy rates between shifts?
I asked a slightly different question of our facilities director. I asked him of the vacancies that we do have on the custodial side right now, where are they concentrated? And he indicated that they're concentrated in second shift.
Huh. Interesting. So obviously for future reference, modifying contracts to enhance second shift might be something to be considered, but nonetheless, I'm in support of the contract as is, with caution down the road for a constant monitoring of vacancies to see if this has any positive impact. Hopefully it will. And if it doesn't, then I would hope that Chief Penn will come back and say, we need some additional help from MARB in this particular area, which we are authorized by law to do. And that's, you know, on the board side, that's a concern. So thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief Penn, I have excuse me, I have one more question concerning the high deductible, or Attorney Kaufman, if you happen to know. Do you happen to know, this being one of the first groups that moved over to the high deductible, and I don't know if it was included in our materials, as their performance and them utilizing that plan, and noting that this was one of our areas of concern when they moved over, being some of your lowest wage earners, and moving to a plan that would really require an individual to really, think about, their medical health care and the cost that would go behind it, as they would have to meet the initial costs.
So I know at some point recently we shared data across all the bargaining units
You did.
regarding participation in the, who was contributing to deductibles and things of that nature.
Hmm.
Um,
So maybe what we can do then is we can look back at that. I'm not saying I'm not in favor. These people have gone without raises for some time, and
Yeah.
they've already come together for an agreement. So I would not suggesting that this would hold things up. But maybe when we're still looking at that a little further, and we want to maybe do a little deeper dive as to each bargaining unit in the plan.
So in that exhibit, I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
We had noted that 59% of this group were contributing at a payroll deduction to their HSA accounts,
Thank you.
and that the average expenditure of a deductible was 63% across the group.
Okay.
63% of the deductible. I think that's the better way to phrase that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a benchmark figure, but it doesn't get into the nitty gritty. You could have a person using 90 and another person using 20.
Understand. Yep.
The 59% contribution rate is understandable with low wage workers.
Hmm.
The concern I have, obviously, as Kim set out, is are they not contributing and not using, which is causing healthcare issues down the road for them and their families, which of course has always been a philosophical argument. And we are in the process, I think, Kim, still of assessing between this and the state plan. So, and all the other units that Chief Penn supplied us with that information are quote unquote incomplete because they're just migrating now.
Right.
So when we get a full picture, I think it would be interesting to see, as you said, are the low wage workers, what was, and I think Chief Penn the last time even stated, what was surprising was the lack of contribution by the teachers.
Right.
To be the high wage workers.
Correct.
So it's kind of like, I don't want to say why, but it's like playing roulette with your healthcare. At least in my mind it is. But that's a deep dive conversation, I think, that we should have down the road, and see if in fact, I don't even know if that's an inhibiting factor for your vacancy rate or perform. I don't know, but it's something obviously for a discussion once we get that other data in from the consultant.
And also knowing that we're just coming out of a pandemic, the whole healthcare industry view is entirely different compared to prior data,
Exactly.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Waxenberg, one thing that we really did extensively with this group that probably hasn't been done as much with some of the other groups, due to, frankly, the head of the food service department who spearheaded it, is we did extensive education with this group. And I know she individually went to people specifically and sat down and helped them set things up when needed.
Good.
Very important. Very important.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can I get a motion for consideration for the local 566?
So moved.
I will take Mark Waxenberg as the motion, and Bob, may I take you for the second? Is because I heard you collide, both of you.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? I hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are all in favor. Then this contract has been approved for consideration for the MARB. Thank you. Let's
Very
move
good.
on
Thank you.
to the next contract. That is the Hartford Federation for School and Health Professionals. And does that still fall within the Board of Ed?
It is
Yes.
us.
Okay, perfect. And I believe this contract is going to deal with the nurses and dental hygienists and occupational therapists and physical therapists. The MARB has opportunity to take consideration for this contract by June 19th is what I'm told. And I'm going to turn it over to the Board of Ed or their counsel to take us through this contract.
I can just jump in here. This unit has the majority of the health service professionals. A few of them are in another unit, but this has the majority of them, both that are in the school nurses and in our school-based health clinics, as well as occupational therapists, physical therapists, and the dentists that are in our health clinics as well. This again is one of these outdated contracts that we are bringing up current. So this group, it did agree to zeros for 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21. They did not have previous zeros. They did have 1 year with a very small GWI, but step in the last contract, but they did not have some of the historical zeros other groups did. Again, as you've seen, we're going back retroactive to the beginning of this year. 21-22 is a 2.5 GWI with STEP. 22-23 is a 2% GWI with STEP, and then 23-24 and 24-25 are 2% GWIs with no STEP. And you see the cost there of what this will cost. One other cost, well, a couple other cost impact items. The first one was increasing from $3,000 to $6,000, the total amount that the district will reimburse for the bargaining unit for continuing education credits. And it created an additional salary differential stipend. We already had ones for bachelors and masters. There is now a $1,250 stipend for a doctorate. And we also included the mid-level practitioners who are our APRNs and physician assistants and the ability to get those stipends. They were previously excluded from that. And again, bargaining unit members hired after ratification of the agreement will no longer have entitlement to longevity. So those currently in the unit will have it, but new ones moving forward will not. As for insurance, this group, as you've heard from other groups, will be migrating fully into the high deductible health plan for the next school year. And we're switching from the fully insured equivalent rate to the allocation rate, plus not more than 4%, as you've seen with all of our other contracts we've brought to you. And as far as premium cost shares, they are currently at 14%. Next year, it will go up to 14.5%. For July 1, 2023, up to 15, and July 1, 2024, up to 15.5. We are doing a similar thing for this group that you saw with our other groups, where the first year that they are migrating over, those individuals that are currently in the PPO plan will have the deductible funded at 75%. Everybody else will have it funded at 50%, and then in the out years, everybody will revert to the 50% for the rest of the contract. They also agreed to eliminate retiree health insurance access for members hired after the board approval of this agreement. So with that, we've given you the overall projected cost impact. And then there are just some minor language changes, including that mileage reimbursement for required travel between schools will be the IRS mileage reimbursement rate, which is what we were already doing, but they asked to have that included in the contract. Obviously updating the Federation rights language to deal with the Janus agreement, updating personal leave of absence language to reflect anti-discrimination laws, and some other elimination of words in the transfer and promotion languages to allow the board some more flexibility in making those decisions. So that is kind of it in a nutshell, unless there's any questions.
I do not have any. Board members?
Were there a number of retirees that were taking the health insurance, or was that, I guess, you said new employees hired will not be able to buy into the retiree medical coverage or medical coverage as a retiree? Are there a lot that are? Like, was that a big benefit that folks were using or not?
I looked at this so long ago, I don't believe there were many, if at all. But we wanted to, that could potentially be a cost driver if someone chooses to do that. So it's something we've been trying to eliminate, but
It's
is
part of the overall strategy to try to bring down the OPEB liability for the city going forward.
Which is great.
Ironically, this is what a group that seems to be, at least at the upper levels, commensurate with the surrounding towns and your dergs. At the lower level, not so, you're behind on average, but nonetheless, at the upper levels, you seem to be in the ballpark. It's surprising that the vacancy rate is so high, being competitive on the salary side as you appear to be on the high level. It's at some point in time, I'm sure you're asking questions of why. It doesn't appear to be salary based on what I see from a wage base.
No salary increases though.
That's true. That's true.
I would opine it's a lot more to do with the stress of the pandemic on any healthcare professional right now.
Yeah.
We are certainly not unique as a district, and certainly not unique in anybody that utilizes nursing services to see very high turnover in those rates right now.
Yeah, I mean, this year is quite high than previous years. Previous years still has, fairly high, and that could be retirements rather than just people transferring out of the district. But you're probably right. I mean, the pandemic is having an impact across all sectors of employment, as you know. But it's something we should probably watch, because health services is a key component of the educational system, and probably will even get more so based on the move towards health-based school clinics and the need for healthcare personnel in our schools. So that's, I'm glad to see that we're starting off at a good jumping off point once we start expanding into those discussions of healthcare clinics within the school system.
Yeah, and I believe, just for information, Hartford is right now the only school district that is operating their own school-based health clinics, and they're actually their employees as opposed to it being outside employees.
That's correct. There are other urbans that are looking at it, but Hartford was at the forefront of this. You're correct.
Any other questions?
I'll move to accept.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Was that Bob? Bob, was that you? Yes.
Second,
okay.
yes.
Yep, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I did not hear any opposing or abstaining. And so this contract has been approved, ready to go to the MARB. Thank you all.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Next item on the agenda is for review, discussion, and possible action for labor contract of the Hartford Police Union. This, I believe, is a MOA. Do I have that right, Julian?
This is a contract that's coming up for expiration on June 30th. And this is the union that was before the board not quite a year ago, I think, to adjust the salary schedules based on market conditions and a number of vacancies and so forth. But this is the underlying contract up for negotiation now.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer, turning it over to you to walk us through the police tentative agreement summary and background on this contract.
Thank Thank you so much. Good morning, members of the MARB. Alexandra Lombardi is also on from our Corporation Counsel office. So if there's any questions, she can also help answer some things, but hopefully I can answer them for you. At a high level, I'll just kind of go through the contract. This is a 4-year contract from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2026. The Hartford Police Union has 473 sworn budgeted positions. At the time of this analysis, though, there were 97 vacant positions. The cost of this contract, though, includes as though everyone, all the positions are filled. The wage increases for overall GWIs is 0 in the first year. That's partly because there will be salary changes for positions above police officer. And then the police officers, as you know, received a special MOU last year. So that's 0 for the first year and then 2% GWIs for the next 3 years. The positions that are getting additional increases include the police officer on special assignment, which is a detective, the sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. I put on the summary page what those increases are over the max salary as of now versus 2020 or going into fiscal year 2023. And those increases then will offset the step increases. So for those 4 positions, there won't be step increases anymore. This will just take effect, and then the GWIs will go into effect. There is a change to overtime, how folks can volunteer for it, and then also there are various ranks that will now get overtime that weren't previously getting overtime. There was no analysis prepared for that, as it's hard to figure out who will take overtime now and who won't, but at the end of the day, it's still one officer taking overtime. So that one I didn't do an analysis for. I do not believe that that cost would be significant at all. For health insurance, the members will be able to continue to buy up to the PPO plan through June 30th of 2023. Speaking to Rich Pekorski, that's fairly cost neutral because they'll just be paying more for their premiums, which should offset any additional cost to the city. There is a pension change in this contract. Going forward, members who are hired on or before June 30th of 2027 and are 50 and have 25 years of experience can retire at age 50. Hooker and Holcomb provided an analysis for us, and we've included that in the package. And then any employee who's post 2012 who elected to pay a higher percentage into the health plan to have an earlier retirement date than 55, which it currently is, they get to go back to the 12.5%. I did the analysis on that cost. It's not significant, but it is in your package as well. And then a few other items that happen. We are now providing uniform stipend. We were just providing clothes to officers or uniforms to officers. Now they'll get a stipend, but that was all budgeted for previously, so it's not an additional cost to the city. They can use compensatory time a little differently. So the language in there will produce a small savings just based on how they can take comp time and how that's applied to overtime. Lateral hires, there's something in there for lateral hires and how they can, I believe, eventually perhaps buy up into the pension plan, but there's no additional cost to the city for that either. And then the other items in the contract they're just simply modifications to the wording. So no cost implications on that. The one thing I did want to point out on the cost analysis, 2 things actually. Number 1, the cost of the yearly steps. That's how we've been doing it. We just put in there the actual cost of the step. Those are not new cost. Those are just the cost of steps that would have been included should the contract have continued as it was. So that's a large number, but it is not a new cost. Also, all of these increases were included in the budget for 2023 and as well as the forecast. So this contract is fully baked into our current budget and our forecast. So we should see no additional cost to the city outside of what we already have in the budget. With that, I will open it up to questions or see if Alex has anything to add to that. Okay. We're set then.
But have to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that this was already included in your budget and in your plan. So that is good news. Do you think that do you think that the analysis, when you looked at the change in the pension based on age, because this is a large group with 473, that there was little impact based on the current population, but it could be impact in the future population?
That's a great question. And I believe that the way that they did this was that they assumed that that the vacancies would be filled. So I believe that that was taken into account, but I can confirm that with Hooker and Holcomb prior
Okay.
to our full MARB meeting.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm sorry, Ms. Kennison, I now that I'm reading this, it looks like they assumed that the level of participation would remain at 428 active employees. So, but yeah, I'll confirm that with them and see if they have any thoughts on that.
Okay.
The ADEC increase gradually goes up. So I would assume that's based on the fact that as the people are hired and that kicks in, your ADEC is going to increase. I mean, you have an impact of almost over 38 million over a 20-year period, but nonetheless, it's still an impact on the ADEC, which you said you factored into your budgeted number, which is fine. Traditionally, the contracts that come before us have a red line version of the existing contract and comparables with other cities and towns, either the Durg and the surrounding towns. That's absent here. I'm sure that there's not going to be that much of a surprise, but nonetheless, it's something that I think we should look at prior to the next MARB, sent out well in advance for us to digest the impact or what it looks like. Also, my concern is obviously you have a vacancy rate of 97 position at the time this was negotiated. I think it went down to 72 the last time we talked with you, but nonetheless, 97 over 473. My concern is we agreed to an MOU to adjust salaries to hopefully diminish that vacancy rate. Has anybody done any look-see to see if that did have any impact? I can't remember with the chief giving us an analysis what the vacancy rate was then prior to the new MOU, which mid-contract increased salaries in the hopes that you could recruit and retain. And did it have a positive impact? Because you're looking at a significant vacancy rate as of this date. Certainly the pension system the enhancement to the pension system is good. And I can't remember what the chiefs, I do remember the chief saying specifically that the rating of your force by other districts was considerable. You were training them and the other districts were taking them. So I'm wondering, and it's all speculative, if the MOU that we previously had agreed to had any impact on retention or recruitment. My concern is it may not have. And if this contract is designed for recruitment and retention with an eye on recruitment and retention, I would hope it would be based on looking at the increases on maximums. But it's a concern. I mean, you can't operate with 25% of your police force vacant, similar to New Haven. So I guess those questions will be, hopefully, it's going to be asked. My concern is going to be asked again at the full MARB meeting, so there's no surprise. So maybe you could be prepared for a comment on that. A red line version and comparables.
Comparables.
Just to give us somewhat of a semblance of what's, what are we looking at? I mean, I have no objection. The unions agreed to it. I have no objection to it going into force. It's just that I'm hesitant to move forward until I see the full analysis.
Right.
Alex, did you want to say something?
Sure, I'm happy to address at least here, and we can certainly get more information from the chief prior to the full MARB meeting. But happy to address a couple of the points raised by Mr. Waxenberg. Number one, let me just say, yes, recruitment and retention was front of mind in coming to this agreement. It was a priority, and it's why you see several provisions before you, including the fact that we adjusted the uniform base salary for the upper ranks. Again, we're keeping in mind not just recruitment and retention of our officers, but of our seasoned police staff as well. We made sure to include GWIs after the first year. Again, the first year is only a 0 because everyone has recently seen a pay increase. And so we want to make sure we remain competitive and we don't backtrack after doing the work that we've done, increasing salaries across the board. Going down, the retirement age was something flagged by the chief as necessary in order to retain our relatively new hires, because this is looking at our competitors or other jurisdictions that might be poaching, if you will, some of our police. They can, with the age 55, they were able to even spend a couple of years here in Hartford and then go someplace else, start fresh with a pension and retire before they would have been able to do so in Hartford. And so that was very important to the chief of police for recruitment and retention to make sure that we were able to lower the retirement age for that group, which we've done here. Moving down under the other section, the lateral hires piece, again, is another piece that was important to the chief in order to be able to recruit lateral hires by making sure that they get credit for previous years of service towards their seniority here in Hartford. So that's something we've provided for here. And we also have the discretion to, in the future, offer lateral hires the ability to buy some of their time in another municipality towards their pension credit here in Hartford. But we would only do so long as their contribution made that cost neutral. Again, all done with an eye towards recruitment and retention. As far as addressing Mr. Waxenberg's question on whether we've seen already an improvement in retention following the MARB's approval of the police officer pay increase, I will say it's hard to see an immediate improvement with police because their testing and academy process is a long one. So I do know that we have recruited a class. I would have to check in with the chief or HR to get details on where that class is. And then where we start to see whether that's had an effect is, in the first year or so after a class graduates in academy, are they staying with us or are they going elsewhere? And our hope and expectation is that they remain here in the city of Hartford. But we certainly can get more details from the chief to see if he's gotten any anecdotal feedback since we made the change. Again, flagging the fact that we might not see that immediately because it's not as if we hire officers on a rolling basis. We do it class by class. We get a big group in. They have to train for a long period of time, and then it might not be until the year after they're out of the academy that we start to see whether our changes have had an effect on their retention.
It'd be interesting to see the chief, if you could share our concerns with the chief so that maybe you could get some background on that, because recruitment and retention, as you said, is at the forefront of his mind. And with this present vacancy rate would be. On the lateral hire piece, they're able to buy into the pension. Are they hired do they get credit on the salary schedule for previous years? Let's say an East Hartford, third year East Hartford police officer comes over to Hartford. Do they go on, and I don't know what the steps are, but assume that there's 5 steps. Do they go on step 4, or do they start at step 1 in Hartford? Is there this lateral, I know in teacher contracts, it varies, but it's moved towards the ability to hire at the same level you left from. Do you have any idea on that?
Yes, so previous to this tentative agreement, the answer would have been they start at step one. Under this tentative agreement, that first bullet of giving up to 3 years of a sworn member's service as a sworn officer with another municipality, counting towards that member's seniority in Hartford, it would be seniority for all purposes. So up to 3
Okay.
years would be, you know, it would place them on the appropriate level of the salary scale, would give them seniority for purposes of vacation accrual, anything else that would come with being a third-year member of Hartford, provided that they have at least that 3 years of service elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Christine, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Kennison, and thank you to the Hartford team for presenting this. I'm just curious to know if is Hartford competing with other cities that are likewise encountering challenges with recruitment and retention, or is there progress toward kind of better best practices or kind of standard contract terms for police contracts? Because we've been hearing about these challenges from other municipalities as well. I'm just curious to know, you know, at some point, will there be a standard so that cities will compete less with one another and really focus on building their police forces?
This is more my opinion than anything, but I think there will always be some level of competition until we get enough applicants, you know, to police positions statewide, such that all of us can have a full staff. I mean, obviously, there will always be differences between contracts as between different municipalities as far as pay or pension. I'm not sure we'll get to kind of a uniform standard in that respect, but to your question and point about best practices, you know, the retirement age of 50 was key there. That's where we saw a lot of individuals moving elsewhere because they would have had to wait so long to retire as compared to if they stayed in Hartford. So Chief Thody, prior to us entering into these negotiations, really did a survey of to which municipalities are we losing some of our people? What are the contract terms there that we need to be able to meet or match or do better than in order to retain our folks? And we made sure to address those in this tentative agreement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to circle back to that pension thing, because it stands out to me. I mean, it is unusual for us to have a contract or to see a contract that is lowering a retirement age. So I think if there is some sort of research that was done as to what the retirement age for officers are in the DERG and the other, right, in these towns that you're competing against, that will be very helpful for the full MARB meeting. The other thing that I think will be helpful, because this is obviously adding, at least according to that Hooker and Holcomb study, right, it's adding considerably to the liability for the plan. Also kind of unusual for us to be sort of supporting that. So if there's you know, a sense of what is the current funded rate of the plan would be helpful too. I mean, what is our progress there? Like, are we just adding more liability onto a plan that's already in trouble? Because that would obviously be a concern. And I think the other thing is, I am very unclear on and maybe I should know better, but this post 2012 versus the post 2017 pension changes, and obviously, at least the way I'm reading this bullet, there's the retirement age reverts in 2027, sorry. But if there's some explanation of what the changes were in 2012 versus 2017, how many people are fitting in those buckets,
I would agree.
all of that would be great. I do, so all that, like, to add to the Mark Waxenberg list of stuff before the next committee meeting. But, the one thing I am concerned about is we are approving contracts, or we're taking away the option, at least, for retiree medical from other employees, and that also have retention issues, that also have recruitment issues. And I do I worry about, in some ways, we're saying we want to address it for the police, but we don't want to address it and maybe are making it worse for the custodians or the school professional, healthcare professionals. And I worry about what that message is to the overall employees of the city of Hartford. That to me is a bigger picture concern.
Yeah, I guess I'll respond by saying that I think the comparators will help you feel more comfortable with those concerns, only because the pension changes that we're making here were a necessity due to public safety, retirement, and pension benefits across the state. Typically, what we were finding was that police groups elsewhere don't have any minimum retirement age. It was basically years of service, period. And so if you started as a young police officer, the idea of having to wait until age 55 really meant that you were 30 years and out instead of the 20 years and out or 25 years and out that your pension would otherwise require, because there was this additional requirement in Hartford of a minimum age for retirement that they weren't seeing elsewhere. You don't see those kind of pension benefits with comparators in other jobs that are not police. So that's what necessitated the change on this side. It was one of the reasons Chief Odie flagged as losing officers when they were in their second, third, even fourth year here, because they could go someplace else and retire at the same point or earlier, starting fresh on a new pension than they could have had they stayed in Hartford, where, we are a major city. Police work is very different here than it is in some of our surrounding towns. And that was all a factor. But your point is well taken. And I think some of the comparators there will help shed light on why that was necessary here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Julian, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
All right, I hear no questions. MARB members, do you wish to take action on this agreement, or would you like to not take action and waiting for the additional information until the full MARB?
Personally, I'd rather wait. I have no full objection. I believe it was done in good faith by both sides. But for us as a MARB to, as Matt said, to do its due diligence, I think we need to see whatever comparables and backup information that we've requested before us, before we take a formal position.
Recommendation.
That would be my 2 cents.
It is mine as well. I think that we need to continue to do our due diligence and make sure that we do have the proper information before we can take it. And since it is incomplete, I do think it puts us in a difficult situation. That's my opinion as well. I agree with Mr. Waxenberg. Anybody else? Your thoughts?
Agreed.
Okay. Then Matt?
Agreed.
Okay. So, City, I would ask that you please come back and get us the information in a timely manner so that the folks can have an opportunity to look through this information and get us the red line as it was asked for, the comparables, and the additional information on, I believe there was pension and the population of those changes in the agreements.
And just to be clear, the post 2012 pension group was established back before 2012. Then in approximately 2016, 2017, we reached the current agreement where we had a new tier. The age 55 had been established for the 2012 group, and it was maintained for the 2017 group. But certainly, we can get information on how many officers we have in those two groups. And
yep, lay it out
yep.
for us so that it is crystal clear and the data is provided.
Got it.
Okay, perfect.
Ms. Kennison, among the items you just summarized, I just want to make sure that Mr. Brockman's comments about the impact on the pension funds
Yeah.
is also included?
Yes, thank you. The liabilities, the outstanding liability, and we know that this is going to suggest that there's a additional almost $40 million that's going to increase
Thank you.
with the change. Yes, thank you, Ms. Shaw. All right, thank you for this, and we will look forward to receiving the additional information so that we can take action on this at the full MARB meeting. That will be on June 15th. We do have until June 23rd to take action on this particular contract. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Local 1716. And I believe we have a memorandum of understanding included in our packet. And I will then ask what I'm trying to see what the population is of this particular group, and it's not coming in front of me quickly. So I will, oh, I know, it's many different workers of different types. So I'm going to turn that over to you and you can present on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So before you, Mayor Bronin had mentioned this at the full MARB meeting that this would be coming before you. So we recently passed the 1716 overall contract. These are 8 individual MOUs for different groups within 1716. So I will just briefly walk through each of them just as a high level. This is 60 members, 60 full-time positions, I should say, some of which are vacant, not all of which are vacant, obviously, but we have ES&T, so our emergency dispatchers and trainees. There's 33 general funded employees in that group, of which 11 are vacant. We have 6 electricians and plumbers and electromechanical, I believe it's called electromechanical positions, 1 which is vacant, 14 automotive and heavy equipment mechanics, 3 which are vacant, and then 3 tree trimmers and 4 clerks. So that's what makes up the 60 that we're talking about today. Overall, for the whole group of 60 individuals, this will cost about $513,000 in the first year. Just like the police union contract, these were all included in our budget and in our forecast. So that's a very high level. So individually here, our emergency telecommunication dispatchers and trainee wages, these are increases to those positions. So that's really what that is. The bulk of that relates to these increases. There's a sign-on bonus that will be offered for new employees. So I calculated that to be 11 employees that would get this $4,000. You know, this is assuming all positions get filled. And then there's a retention bonus for our current employees. And since there were 22 current employees, I assumed again the highest that is included in there, $2,000. So that gets us our $88,000 that is on the summary sheet in front of you as well. So I did calculate that. There are also referral bonuses that are being offered in this group because it's it's one of those populations that is very unclear if anybody will have a referral bonus or not. So it's in there. If we do pay them out, I do not feel it's significant to the overall contract. So that was not included in here, but obviously something that we could handle. That's the emergency telecommunications. We have increase in wages for our early learning teachers. These are all grant funded positions, so there was no analysis done for this one, as all of those increases can be assumed by the grants. And also hiring and retention incentives for our early learning center staff. That's the same. That's why there's no analysis included, because they're all grant funded. It's very difficult to all of these positions that we're talking about today have been very difficult to retain and to recruit, which is why we're here before you asking for these changes. We've got electricians and plumbers. That's a straight 15% increase to be competitive. No changes to the steps. We have automotive and heavy equipment mechanics. That's 6% increase for automotive mechanics and 9% increase for heavy equipment mechanics. No changes to the steps. And then for that one, the annual tool allowance will go from $500 to $1,000. So that's 14 folks. So that's $7,000 is what that will equate to. We have tree trimmers 1 and 2. That's a 2.5% increase. And all of these increases are on top of the the 2 and 2.5% that went into effect with the contract that you looked at last month. The cashiers, data input clerks, and medical coding clerks and senior supply clerk wages, those are 12.5% increase. No changes to the step. And then the last are the licensed practical nurse wages, and all licensed practical nurses are included in our HHS group, which are all included under grants. So there's no analysis for that, but that is why, because they're all grant funded and it can all be assumed by the grant. So all of these MOUs go into effect the later of the pay date following the approval of this agreement, or July 1st of 2022. And it was, oh, and the other item to point out is that our pension plan does not include COLA adjustments tied to increases for positions. So this, outside of just the fact that these folks will have, will have a higher wage, it won't affect the overall pension, the ADEC. That's a really high level summary of it. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Alex can chime in if I missed anything or if she wants to add anything. Thank you.
Any questions from the MARB?
Just a quick question. A couple of things I heard was like 9%, 12%. Is that what's the reason for that? I know it's a very few number of people, and but is that market conditions or? Okay.
Combination of that and, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, combination of that and really just a survey of, especially with the tradespeople, what others are making in those trades, even without experience, and just the fact that we were far behind that.
Sure. And the second is with regards to grant funded positions, have you kind of charted that out once the grant is up, how you keep up with that level?
Yeah, I would say these grants that they are working under are the grants that will, I believe, continue. They're our early learning centers, which I believe is just an annual grant that we receive, and the LPNs, that as well. I'm not sure which grant that falls under, but I believe it was the same case on both of them.
And,
All right,
and
that's fine. Thank you. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, for all of our union positions that are grant funded, they are always conditional upon future grant funding. So it's not as if we're obligated to maintain the position, the person, or the role if grant funding runs out.
Thank you.
Even though there is grant funding for these, do you know how many positions are in there that are affected with these?
I will pull those numbers. They're not many. I want to say I won't guess, but they are very few in number, but I will find that out for the full
Perfect.
meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can you just speak to why, because 1716's, if I remember correctly, a bigger unit than the 60. How'd you come to these positions to pick to have these adjustments?
It was almost solely driven by our inability to recruit for the positions or fill our vacancies. These are the positions that we have posted for, haven't been able to find qualified or quality candidates for, and in some instances, any candidates for. So that's what drove us.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I didn't know that. Thank you, Matt. How many are in this entire contract then versus the population that you're taking into consideration?
I can get that number very quickly.
Okay. Well, I think you can also have that for us. Are you going to be providing comparables and red lines as well?
So the only adjustments to the contract that would come out of these MOUs are to the salary tables and in a couple of cases to their job description, which is not incorporated into the contract. Just because you'll see, like, mechanics is an example where we adjusted some of their job responsibilities. Automotive is going to be able to take on additional work that was previously within the purview of heavy only. So that will come with a change to the job description, which aren't currently in the collective bargaining agreement itself, separate documents.
Okay, so there's nothing that's going to happen within the collective bargaining for these contracts,
Just
these
the salary
MOA,
table.
just the salary table. And
Right.
are you going to provide us with that?
I am not allowed to touch spreadsheets. I'm just an attorney, but either HR or Jen, would you make those changes?
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Okay.
And Ms. Kennison, to your point, there's 235 members of 1716. And when we did the contract analysis, we actually provided comps for most of these positions because we knew that they were up for discussion. So I can
Then
provide
just,
that summary.
yeah, even if
Yeah.
you just resend it, that will be fine.
Yeah, will do.
Do you happen to have there, Jen, how many vacancies there are in 1716?
Good question.
35 as of December.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion? We wish to take action on this contract, or do you want further information from the MARB? We have until June 25th to take action on this memorandum. We do have a meeting on June 15th.
For consistency purposes, if we're still looking for data, why don't we just throw this in with the police contract? I have no objection.
Yep.
But again, I think just to make sure that we've done our due diligence, resending comparables and things of that nature would help. And I'm not sure, but my assumption is MARB will pass it, but we probably should get all the information necessary.
I'm in agreement. Thank you, Mr. Waxenberg. Rest of the MARB members?
Sure.
Okay. All right, then we will pass on that, and we will look for some additional information just so that we can have it handy when we look at all the contract as a whole. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the budget and mitigation measures. Jennifer, would you like to bring us up to date on those measures, please?
Of course, thank you.
Mhm.
So we've had some turnover in several of our positions that we are still working on. So because of that, there hasn't been a ton of activity on our sheet, and plus it's been budget season and everything else. So
Mhm.
we've definitely updated it for what we've had done, and things are still moving forward. Maybe just not as quickly as we would like, but we are still making progress. Just the highlights for you on the tax collection efforts. We're just about at our $300,000 that we had projected originally. But he did want to point out that we currently have our 50-50 split of revenue for our license plate scanning project. And we will not be renewing that contract for next year. So we don't budget for this. This is always unbudgeted funds. So it will not affect our budget going forward, but we will not have that next year. And that is really our only significant highlight. For golf, we will be able to take that $100,000 of savings this year. Our golf operations, while not quite as strong as they were during the pandemic, as people are back at work and things like that, they still have significant cash reserves. So we will not need to fund them that $100,000 this year, which is terrific.
Great.
Our workers' comp, I know I've talked, I think I talk every month about this, our PMA 24, our nurse triage line, because it's just been such a great thing that we've done here at the city. We're currently looking to see about $600,000 of savings over last year. And we think a lot of it is attributable to this triage option that folks have now to call when they're injured. Just a quick statistic is so far through April, we've only had 33 reportable claims in our DPW group. So that's through 10 months of the year. Last year we had 60 through the whole year. So our overall claims are down, our per claim cost is down. It's been a really great tool. We should be able to implement this in our police department before the end of the year, and then in fire by hopefully the first quarter of next year. So things are moving forward with that. We are seeing great things coming out of that. Again, I've mentioned it before. It's hard to put cost avoided on this sheet to say it's a savings, but so that's why it's not in the total column. But I did note it on the side there.
Great.
And we continue to meet as a group for fleet and facility management as a cross-departmental team. So we do continue to see ideas that come out of that will be cost savings in the future. We meet monthly on both of those. So again, it's cost avoided are hard to put on here, but we're definitely moving forward on that as well.
Very good. The one you just described on when they can make the phone calls and get some quick assistance when somebody should get hurt, is the provider providing this for you, or you're doing this yourself in-house?
Oh, no, it's our third party claims
Third party.
administrator.
Third party plan administrator. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take note of that for other towns.
And we're happy to talk to anybody about it. It really is.
Perfect.
It really is a great thing to do.
Thank you. Is that it for your update?
That's all. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the MARB?
Just one, this is a small potatoes question, but the license plate scanning, because I know other cities have brought this issue up many times. Why, I guess, because I know you noted that you're not renewing, was it lack of, well, why was that? Just because like Waterbury talks about this issue all the time, and I don't know. If there's guidance, I'm curious for it, that's all.
Yeah, I'm actually, Leanne, do you want to talk to that? I'm happy to talk to it, but Leanne's definitely our expert on that.
Good morning, everyone. So the license plate scanning initiative, it's really a lot of work for both our assessment department and our collection department. And the bills don't necessarily merge well through QDS, as a taxpayer can go online and see a current balance due, come in the office to pay it, and then they find out they have an additional $400 due through this license plate scanning initiative. So it's causing a lot of headaches for both departments operationally. And at this point, we've exceeded tax collections, the budget for the past now 2 years. We just don't feel like the payoff is worth the headache.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
That is good to know. No other questions? Could you give us an update on your FY22 audit process? While we still have you, Leanne, or?
Absolutely. So currently, we are working with the departments. We are reviewing our fixed asset listings by departments. We're reviewing open purchase orders in preparation for our June 30 year end. We're getting ready to send out our petty cash verifications, giving the departments time to reconcile and refill any petty cash that they have in their departments. Making sure all departments are processing all cash receipts that they may have in their possession. I met with CLA, our audit firm, yesterday. We have a preliminary schedule for our audit. I have not had the chance to communicate this schedule to the Board of Ed or the library or anyone at this point. So this will be our first notification. But currently, we are scheduled to close our year in our financial software August 12th and August 13th. CLA will be coming in to start preliminary field work the weeks of August 22nd and August 29th. So they'll be here for 2 weeks at the end of the summer. They will come in for final field work the last week in October, and that will typically run through mid to late November. We're trying to push the schedule up a week or so from prior years because CLA, as you know, was formerly Bloom Shapiro.
Right.
Once they merged with CLA, they have a national review process that takes 2 weeks. So in order to ensure that we can make the 12/31 filing deadline, we need to push our preparation schedule up a week or two. So that's
Okay.
our goal.
Very good. Great. I do not have any other business. Does anybody else have any other business to bring to our attention? Oh, we lost Matt. He's just coming back.
Ms. Kenneth,
Julie?
I would like to, I'm sorry.
Please.
I just wanted to update the MARB that the budget was passed on Monday by the Court of Common Council. There were a few changes up and down, but overall the total expenditures stayed the same. They just moved some dollars between the departments, but it was a great process and everything was signed and sealed and delivered. So just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you so much. You can give that also at the full board, please,
Will do.
on the 15th.
Okay. Sure.
That's great news. Julian, anything else that we need to bring to this committee?
No, I don't think so, but so I'm clear, is the subcommittee looking to have a special meeting to revisit these contracts for which additional information is
No,
needed? Or
No.
are you going into the MARB meeting just absent a recommendation on the contracts?
yes,
Okay,
to take at the full MARB, just pending these additional information, and then we'll bring it up at but we are looking for that information prior to, the sooner the better, so that they can have enough time to digest it. Should it be incomplete? Okay. Any concerns or questions, Julian, with that?
no,
Yeah, no, our intent wasn't to have a special meeting. That they're going to provide us with that information and then we'll be ready to go. All right. That's it for the agenda for today. And if I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. White. How about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Waxenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. For those of
Thank
us that have another meeting, we'll see you later.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thank
Take
you.
care.